and this is our third video about the cabin. We did the foundation, and then we did the walls, and now we're going to talk about the roof, what we did on the roof. And when I'm doing this, I'm telling you about the Sawmill Structures kit that Diana and I purchased and then put together. It took us pretty much a whole summer, and it's fantastic. It's small, compact. But little homes are all the rage right now, and we're both kind of little. It's just perfect for us in the summer and winter. We're looking forward to the winter. But I'm also throwing in some of the changes that we made, some of our modifications. In fact, the fourth video after this one is going to be specifically about the modifications. So the roof of the Sawmill Structures kit for this particular model is really straightforward. Your roof boards in, really quite simple. And they screw down along the eave into the 2.5 or 2-inch wall boards, and they screw down into each of the 5 rafters. The roof boards on each side are fastened at the top, and then 2 more rafters and at the bottom. They're really solid, and they're fastened down with 2.5-inch screws. They're not going to go anywhere. And they're tongue and groove. They go together tightly as a tongue and groove. So the ceiling is very, very good. Directions had indicated that the flat side of the roof board should go down, would normally go down. They suggested anyway, and so it would be perfectly flat. No grooves at all. But we thought that would destroy the look, so we did it the other way. We flipped them over. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter, because one side's flat, one side has machined little grooves in it. This looks much better, in my opinion. So we got all those fastened down, and we were pretty pleased with ourselves. So now if you look at the roof here, you'll be able to see that groove effect that I'm mentioning. In between each of these boards, there's a groove, so it looks like each one of these is a log. Again, obviously it isn't, but it's a nice look. The first thing we do is put on tar paper, good quality construction tar paper, starting of course at the eaves, full width piece of tar paper, fastened full length, one piece, full length, no joints in it, stapled down, not if you staple down too tightly, just lightly, so it doesn't blow along, full length. And then I think it took 3 pieces of tar paper to cover this. Another piece on top of that, overlapping by about 6 inches or so, and then another piece on the very top, overlapping by 6 inches or so. So we have 3 pieces of tar paper on the roof boards running full length. Then we put a 4th piece of tar paper right down the center. Slide bend in it to cover the top, and right down the center. So that made it waterproof. We then had to decide what kind of roofing, roof covering we put on. And there's choices. You can use shingles, you can use cedar shakes, you can use steels, all kinds of choices. My experience the last 20 years or so has been steel. Steel is strong, pretty much maintenance-free, and any color you want, and they last pretty much forever. And surprisingly, the cost of steel roofing now, or steel siding, is because of the price of wood has gone up so much. The cost of using steel is surprisingly affordable. I'm going to say it's less, I don't recall exactly, but we decided on steel. And steel roofing is very, very easy. I've done both. I've done a lot of shingle roofs too, and I think it's easier than shingle, quite frankly, because you don't have any edge, you don't need any edging on it. A lot of things you don't need if you use steel. You're literally called a steel company or your local hardware store, and you say, okay, I need so many pieces of steel. Now the steel comes in sheets. The sheets are, I'm going to guess, at 32 inches. I believe it's 32 inches edge to edge. And of course, as you know, they have hills in them, and the hills overlap. So 32 inches edge to edge. So you really just have to measure the length of the roof. Let's say it's 32. So that's whatever it is. And you just measure, okay, so we need so many pieces of steel, 32 inches wide to cover the roof. However, the length, you can specify. And so all we had to do was measure from the peak down to the eave, and then decide how much overhang we wanted. The roofing boards here do have a decent overhang, which is good, but I wanted to have a little bit more than that, so I think I had 1.5 inches of overhang. So I just called them. I said, okay, so I need 24 pieces of 32-inch steel in the red color, whatever it's called. The truck shows up a couple of days later, takes off the bundle, and there's your steel roof. 24 pieces, each 32 inches wide, 9 feet, whatever I said, 4.5 inches long. Just that easy. So we hauled them back out here and started at one end and started putting the steel roofing on. Now this is where it becomes even more important to make sure that they're perfectly straight. because as the steel roofing goes on, you want to be absolutely certain that each one is perfectly straight. Even though they do have a groove that matches up, it's still possible to have it out by that 1/4 of an inch that I mentioned earlier, and it's really frustrating when you get all the roofing on and it's not straight when you get to the end. So that's very, very important. Take your time and be sure it's going on straight. Now, we also wanted the roof to be warm. So after we had the tar paper on, which goes on the boards, then we put on strapping, and it screws into the rafters. Between each of those straps, we filled that with rigid foam. And then the steel goes on top of that. Now the steel as well, and some of you may know this, of course, steel is held down by special steel roofing screws, because as soon as you punch a hole in the steel, be it a nail or a screw, you got a hole in the steel. And so it'll leak. So there's a special steel roofing screw. It's usually a hex head, like any hex head bolt, and they use a special hex driver, drive it down through the steel and into the rafters. But what makes those screws particularly special is that they have a rubber, or at least a compressible ring underneath the head. So when you push it down into the steel, bring it down, and you push it down just the right amount. Not too much, too little, it won't compress that rubber, it won't seal. Too much, and it'll squeeze the rubber out and it won't seal. Just the right amount. And this is all in the instructions for steel roofing. We put in lots of screws. We didn't waste them, but we had a system that was whatever it was, 12 inches, front to back, to be sure that steel wouldn't flap. So there we go. So roof boards, and then tar paper, and then we strapped it. Rigid foam insulation between the straps, so the roof is insulated, and then the steel roofing. Just about that simple. And I made, as I mentioned, I made the steel roofing overhang a bit on the eaves. I also made it overhang a bit. I got some more pictures to show you. I also made it overhang at the front and the back a little bit too, so that any water or snow that hits the steel roof and falls off only touches steel. It doesn't hit wood underneath. That's the theory anyway, and I think it's pretty good. Well, then a little later, we decided on what we were going to do for heat. And we got a micro stove, a micro wood burning stove, which we're going to show you all in the 4th video, the last video, and all the extras that we did. And in order to get that stove working properly, I had originally thought I'd bring it up and out the wall. But there's several reasons why that's not perfect. The bends, and then the insulation to make sure it's safe, and everything else. So after a while, I decided that I'd go straight through the roof. We screwed up our courage and worked out exactly what shape it had to be, because although the stove, I'll tell you about this later, but the stovepipe is round, the roof is sloped. So where the stovepipe goes through the roof, it's actually a fairly oval. It's got quite an elongated oval shape. So I had to calculate with the angle of the roof and the size of the pipe exactly what shape that oval was. From round, I had to go to oval, and then figure that out, make a template, get up there, mark it. And then finally okay, Diana, I think this is it. And we had to start drilling and cutting through our, steel roof. So after we got it all done, we had that piece of red roof sitting on the ground, and I said, I think we'll save that, just as a memory, and then nailed it to a tree out there. So that's what that's all about. Anyway, that's the roof. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy, and it works perfectly. It's a good solid roof. Alec Peirce at the ranch with Diana in the cabin. Bye-bye.